What's up, soldiers? Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com. Always a pleasure having you guys here in the kitchen with me. We are doing something different, something unique, something new. Curry pork, breadfruit, oil down. You heard me right? Stay tuned. You're gonna love this one, man. Thing now starting to blub blub. The very first thing we've got to do is prep the pork and season it. And that's what I went ahead and I did here. And this is a fatty piece of pork. You can use any cheap cut of pork. You don't need any, and please, not too lean, because you need that fat to help with the whole oil down process. And I cut it up into 1-inch pieces. I used the juice of 1 lime and cool water to wash it, drain it, and here's where we at right now. As with everything Caribbean, we're going in with a green seasoning. 2 heaping tablespoons of that. And if you are new to Caribbean cooking and the culinary culture of the Caribbean green seasoning is pretty much a puree. And I use olive oil as my base. Some people use water, some people use vinegar. Of all the herbs we like using in our meat dishes or vegetarian dishes, in our fish dishes, it's very versatile. It also has seasoning peppers in there, garlic, all that niceness. Speaking about niceness, I've got a Scotch bonnet pepper here, totally optional. You can use whatever pepper you like. If you don't like heat, leave it out. If all you have available is a habanero or jalapeno or whatever it is you have available, use it. I'm using seeds and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about this before. Wash your hands with soap and water immediately after handling those hot peppers, or you will pay 1 visit to the bathroom and you'll be cussing Uncle Chris. Salt. It may look like a lot of salt going in there, but remember, we're putting a breadfruit in there as well, so we got to compensate for all that salt. Fresh ground black pepper. If you don't have fresh ground, if you're using the dollar store stuff, I ain't hating. That is what you have. That is what you have. That black pepper goes in there. The final thing, it's a very simple marinade. I've got a piece of a tomato. My daughter used it this morning for her breakfast. And the leftovers, which is just a few pieces of that, is going in there. And pretty much all you would do now is give that a good mix. Let everything get coated in that green seasoning and that salt and black pepper and everything else. And then you would let it sit for about, I'd say an hour is good enough. If you want to do 2 hours, better. Overnight, perfect. Now if you wanted to add some grated ginger in here, I would certainly encourage that. That ginger will add a lovely flavor to the festivities that's about to happen. So it's all mixed up now. You can see the niceness that happened there. Allow that to marinate. And by the way, if you're looking for that recipe for the Caribbean green seasoning, head over to CaribbeanPod.com, and at the very top you will see the recipe index. Click on that, it's in there. Next up, the breadfruit. This is a beauty. It's been a while since I got something so nice here in Canada. Nice and full, which means it's fully mature, and yeah, no blemishes or anything like that. Nice and solid. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut off the stem, and we're going to use that. That's going in rubbish, but that flat base there, boom. So it's nice and sturdy now, so we ain't trying to cut we hand and thing. And then we're just going to go down the center. And you need a sharp knife and a little bit of energy. And then we switch it over. And here we go, we've got that cut breadfruit. Now we want to get rid of this core part here. That is rubbish, the skin is rubbish. So what we're going to do, safety again, we're going to put the flat side down, always flat side down. And you notice it was starting to ripe. My finger went through it, but small thing, we eating that. Down the center again, and we're going to cut it into wedges, like so, right? Then I'm going to cut it again. This time I'm going on an angle, like so. So now we have the core part here. So all you're going to do is take a sharp knife, cut that core. That is rubbish. We're going to toss that out. All we want to do now is peel back the skin, like so. And the thing about breadfruit, notice how I said it's nice and firm on the outside, but you never know on the inside, yeah? That sort of soft spot there. I'm going to cut that out. Everything else is nice and hard and firm. continue peeling it as I just did there and set this aside. You can put it in cool water just so it doesn't discolor and stuff like that. It is summertime, so any opportunity to be outside, you know, I man will take advantage of that. I've got 3 tablespoons of olive oil. If you want to use vegetable oil, coconut oil, whatever you want to use, you can certainly use it. Medium-sized onion and 7 cloves of garlic into that slightly warm oil. We don't want to burn anything, but we want to get all that flavor from the start. So low medium heat, medium low heat, and let that go for a few minutes until all that, it perfumes everything. It's been about 4 minutes. I cranked up my heat now because you start seeing little golden edges on the garlic and the onion. I do apologize for the wind. This one of them things, you're outside, you're gonna get that wind, you're gonna get that noise, you're gonna get hammering, you're gonna get them birds flying by and trying to mako. Anyhow, here's where we're gonna toss in that curry powder now. We need 2.5 tablespoons of that curry powder. Your favorite curry powder. Now, if you're doing this thing gluten-free, read the label of the curry powder that you use, because sometimes they add flour as a filler. We've talked about that before. Don't ask me why they do it, but it's just one of them things. So read the label, yeah? And this is my own blend. It's based on a Madras blend with that Caribbean vibe in it, yeah? We're gonna cook that curry there for about 3 minutes. And for more of that Caribbean niceness, let's go in with a bit more of that Caribbean green seasoning in there. Give that a nice little stir. And what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much frying the curry to sort of let the spices which makes up that curry powder, allow them to bloom. You notice how dark it got? It's going to go a bit grainy. That is exactly where we want it to be. Just look at that niceness in that pot there. Hey, there's things going on here, boy. Now that we got those spices to bloom, and you know, my neighbors are probably asking themselves, why this boy always torturing us with all that niceness in his backyard there. It's smelling real nice. Now we got to cook out the rawness, and if you don't cook out that rawness, you're going to get a sort of a gritty aftertaste when this curry is all done. So water. That is 1 cup of water, if you're wondering. And the heat is on high, so we just want that to boil down. And to give it more of that curry, Caribbean curry vibe, I got anchor masala. And I've got what we call roasted jeera, which is pretty much cumin, ground roasted cumin. And both items can be found on your favorite local Caribbean grocery store. Go out and support them. If you cannot source the anchor masala, the roasted ground jeera or cumin is your best friend. And when I say it's your best friend, it means that you can double up on that if you can't get access to the anchor masala. That's going to cook that down now, and we want to bring it back to, we want to cook all the way down to bring out that rawness, as I said, and to bring it back to the oils. And we want to see the oils that we started off with. So it will take about 4 or 5 minutes. So have some patience here. This is the foundation or the building blocks to flavor in this curry pork breadfruit oil down. So as I move this around, you're going to start seeing the oil that we started off with. It's like a thick paste at this point here. And you're probably thinking, Chris, that real thick boy. That's like a real... Let me ain't go there, but real thick. Anyhow, here is where now, after we burn off all that liquid and we start seeing that, see that separation that you're seeing there? And the oils that you're seeing. I hope you guys can catch that on camera there. Now is where we're going to start adding the seasoned pork into the pot. Now remember, your heat is supposed to be on high. I'm dealing with the conditions out here, so the wind kind of hefting things up, but small thing. We will get that nice little sear that we're looking for. What we want to do is coat the pieces of pork with that lovely curry base that we created. My heat is on high. Keep that heat on high because we really want to sear this. It's going to sprout up a lot of liquid. We want to burn off that liquid. And then we're going to let everything braise and come together. The breadfruit still have to make an appearance, so hold tight. Now one more thing. In the same bowl where we marinated that pork in, you want to put about 5-6 cups of water in there. Swish it around and hold on to that. What I forgot to mention, if you have a lid, I don't have a lid big enough for this pot. This is my outdoor pot. I just don't have a lid for it. But if you have a lid, please put that lid on there. It's going to help speed up the process. 17 minutes later, all that liquid that naturally sprouted would be gone. If you had the lid on, after 15 minutes, remove the lid and burn off all that liquid. See that bit you seen on the bottom there? It's called that fond. That is where all the niceness is happening. You know, it may look like a lot of pork, but I man like to eat meat. I ain't gonna lie. Remember that water tell all to add? Now we're gonna add it in here. And we're gonna move that around like so. And you all know the situation. Uncle Chris is based in Canada, so I'm using coconut milk, and that's 100 grams of coconut milk powder. If you have actual liquid coconut milk, going with about 2.5 to 3 cups of coconut milk just to bring everything together. But remember, here's where the sort of math comes into play. If you are using liquid coconut milk, cut back on the amount of water, so you go half water, half coconut milk. Irie, you know, and if I was based in the Caribbean, I'll be using fresh grated coconut to make my own coconut milk. But I'm sadly is not in the Caribbean right now, and I can't see myself being there anytime soon because of the COVID and all that thing like that. Borders are still shut down. We are bringing this back up to a boil. Those little lumps of coconut milk that you're seeing there, that's all going to melt down. You don't have to worry too much about that. Now here's where we're going to tuck in the pieces of breadfruit that we had, and I told you I'm just going to put it in water just to make sure it doesn't discolor. If you wanted to cut this up into smaller pieces, because I'm is using a massive pot here. If reality means your pot is smaller, by all means, cut them up into smaller pieces. But the reason why I like big pieces like this is because for that pork to be fork tender, it's going to take about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. So with big pieces of breadfruit like what you're seeing there, it means it's not going to disappear on me as it cooks down. I've got a nice bubble happening here. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have a lid big enough for this pot. Now, where I'm based in the Caribbean, instead of using spinach, and that is what I'm using here, just plain old spinach you find at the grocery store here in North America. I'm using that to form a sort of an insulated layer, so this thing doesn't dry up on me or cook down too quickly. But I want it to sort of be nice and tender and have enough liquid. Now you'll have to play around with the liquid. Ooh, camera out of focus a little bit there. Play around with that a little bit. With the liquid, if it dries up too fast, well, you'll have to add some more water. What I was going to say is, typically, if I was in the Caribbean, I'll be using dasheen bush leaves, which is the leaves of the taro plant or the dasheen plant. I've got 4 weary peppers here. We call it coffee peppers, some people call it cherry peppers, and I'm just going to tuck those in there as well too, just randomly, nice and whole. I'm going to break them later because I like the heat, and all we're going to do is reduce the heat, let that simmer, let that cook down for about 1.5 hours or so until everything is nice and tender and falling apart. Now, oh yeah, before I forgot, if you wanted to add some carrots in there, if you wanted to add a stick of cinnamon while you were cooking that curry pork, you can certainly do that. You know, you can tailor this to your own liking later on, maybe at the 1 hour mark. If you wanted to add some sweet potato in there, you can certainly do that. If you want to add some green banana, you can do it, but add it later on so it doesn't fall apart. I turned my heat down to medium-low now, and I'm stucking the spinach in between to form that sort of layer, that protective layer. That's going to cook down. It's going to wilt. So if it seems like a lot when you first start off, bear in mind it is going to wilt down there, yeah? Lid on if you have that lid, or if you're doing as I do, and a little bit of patience, you know. It's been going now for about 20 minutes, so I'm just going to stir it, and we're going to keep moving around that breadfruit and tuck it down inside that liquid, that coconut gold we have going on here. Now the thing with oil down, and there's always that inner fighting between people from Trinidad and Tobago and people from Grenada, because we both call different things oil down, and when I say that is because the recipes are totally different, right? But the oil down part of oil down, or run down, oil down, when that coconut milk cooks down, it releases all that natural oils from the coconut, and that is where the oil in oil down comes from. So let me fight up too much about that, right? For now, we just continue cooking that. It's been about 40 minutes now. And I'm telling you, man, this thing smells incredible. I'm just going to tuck that pork back down inside there. Ever so often I'm giving it a stir just to move everything around. The breadfruit is getting nice and tender, the pork is getting tender, but more importantly, the breadfruit is sucking everything in. That is going to cook down. It's been going now for an hour and 10 minutes, and that is after I added the liquid. You have two options here. Well, first of all, taste it for salt and adjust it accordingly. You have two options. Yeah, first one, turn the stove off if everything is nice and tender. You want to make sure it's nice and tender as well. The weary peppers, if you don't want that heat, don't break them. You don't. Remember, like I said, it's optional. Or I said leave the liquid, or you cook it down. The further you cook this down, but you want to pay attention to the bottom of the pot. There's natural sugars in coconut milk, and it will want to burn on you. So be mindful of that. If you want to cook it down, that is where, and I spoke about it earlier, you're going to get that oil down effect. You're going to start seeing that oil on the bottom of the pot there, and that is pure niceness. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cook it down for about 5 more minutes, and I'm going to shut things down. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. My take on my own little recipe here: curry pork, breadfruit, oil down. You gotta love this one, man. Vibes it up, alright?